Greetings and salutations. My name is, of course, Charles Q. Banks, and I'd like to welcome you to my series of discussion videos in black and white. If you'd like to leave a topic for discussion in the comments below, I will try to reply in a video in black and white. So, I recently watched the currently airing anime, Rising of the Shield Hero, an isekai fantasy video game show about a young man named Naofumi who gets stuck in another world, just like all isekai, and he is one of the four chosen heroes who will save the world, this other world, from the apocalyptic disasters to come known as waves. There are multiple waves. The first wave already happened, in which many zombies and skeletons and monsters rose up and destroyed several villages, but they were able to be beaten back by the human soldiers of the kingdom. Now, the four chosen heroes, I was about to say five, have been summoned by the magics of this world, and they all come from different dimensions, different worlds, parallel worlds, all a different version of Japan. And Naofumi is, of course, from our world, Japan, but he has the shield, which makes him the weakest. He doesn't have an actual offensive weapon, and so everyone thinks the worst of him for it, and everyone has it out for the shield hero. Everyone loves the person with the spear or the sword or the bow, because those are the coolest, but a support character is generally looked down upon by others. Nobody wants to play a defensive role in an RPG game in real life, as well as in this world, and so he gets the brunt of a lot of ridicule. And then the interesting thing about this show is that there is an accusation of rape against him by one of the characters who seemed to be a good person, Malty, her name was, or Mine. She told him she was mine at first, and then turned around and took all of his stuff and accused him of rape so that she would get away with it. And everyone believes her because he's the shield hero, and the entire kingdom just kind of ousts him, doesn't banish him, but no one will give him proper food or shelter. He has to go to the lowest of the low areas in order to provide for himself, and no one will get into his adventuring party because they all fear him for seikohara, sexual harassment in Japanese slang. So that's the crux of this show. The Rising of the Shield Hero is about a man who is down and out from the beginning, and has to try and raise himself out of the dust. And, the rising of the shield hero, that's what it means. And there's not much more to say about this show. If you like isekai, you will like this show. It is another one. All that what I just described as a premise was in the first episode revealed. Spoilers for the first episode. And probably spoilers for the rest, because I do want to talk about this in a little bit more detail. Just that I feel like there's nothing to this show more than that kind of down and out, kind of self-loathing element that happens with the shield hero. He is someone who, because of what has happened to him in the show, feels like everyone is against him and that he deserves it, and that he takes it upon himself. It's a burden on his soul, on his mind. It takes its toll. He becomes quite a cynical son of a gun very quickly, and he realizes that he has to go out of his way to do things that would otherwise be looked down upon in order to survive. Because no one is willing to do anything good for him. Usually in this scenario, a hero would be, put upon a pedestal and helped and aided, and everyone would love him. And that's kind of how it would generally happen in an RPG. You are summoned and you are super powerful even from the beginning, and everyone is hoping that you will become even more powerful to face the threats to the RPG world. In this one, It's the opposite. Everyone is basically trying to throw him under the bus, so to speak, and he has to go, circumvent all of these obstacles socially as well as militarily, and yeah, that is what it is about. He is a man that has gone through a lot, even in the first few episodes, and doesn't really have faith in anyone, doesn't really want to love anyone, doesn't feel loved, and it's kind of that psychological element that makes this show different from other isekai. But it is a very popular anime right now. And I'm not really sure why. Those things I mentioned are the only things that really set this show apart. Also, the fact that there's been tons of contention about this show politically, I can't understand either. There's been tons of uprisings over the fact that there's a false accusation of rape by a woman, and she's a villain, and we can't have that, I guess. It happens so often in American Western shows, like detective shows and dramas and soap operas, and the moment that it happens in a new anime, everyone loses their minds. It's just it's a perfect example of how there is, like I said before, a general culture of outrage in a certain group of people in the West these days that just wants everything to be PC, super clean, politically correct, and Shield Hero doesn't really follow the politically correct trends. Japan doesn't do that at all. Japanese sentiments are basically anti-PC, which I actually appreciate. It was the same type of outrage that happened with the Goblin Slayer anime, which is a bit more edgy, much more edgy than this show, but the same kind of outrage has been had in that show as in this show, The Rising of the Shield Hero. And I kind of understand the Goblin Slayer one because it's super edgy and it's a cartoon, so I guess people don't expect there to be cartoons for adults or with adult themes or scary themes. But again, there have been so many of these types of shows already, like Berserk, like oh my word, there's just a massive list. All of the biggest anime have been adult affairs with lots of violence, some sexual themes, and you just have to get over it if you're willing to get into reviewing media. And that's what I've had to come to. Being a Christian, there's just always going to be adult themes in adult media and adult anime. And this is, while it's not necessarily a completely adult anime, I think it is majorly for teens. It's not for children, obviously, because of those adult themes, but it is definitely not like M for mature, rated R type show, and there's nothing in it that I would say is completely inappropriate. There's obviously a little bit of fan service in certain of the episodes, which I do not appreciate, but it is kept on the down low, as they say, throughout all of the episodes in which that kind of fan service does happen. So even though it is in your face, it's very low key. Yeah, I would recommend this show to anyone who really likes isekai. But I'm kind of over isekai myself. Going into a video game world is a pretty niche thing, and it constantly is popular in every season of anime. I'm tired of it. And as to my own thoughts on Rising of the Shield Hero, let's get into that. These 9 episodes that are out that I've been able to watch on Crunchyroll for free, I haven't watched the 10th because I'd have to pay for Crunchyroll, are good. They're fine. Some people say that the show drops off in quality after the first few episodes, either in animation or in actual like content. And I didn't really feel that way. I was never really that impressed with the animation at all. Like, even looking at the thumbnail or the poster for Rising of the Shield Hero, I was not impressed. I looked at that image and I was saying to myself, it looks like it'd be a good show, but why? Why do I want to watch another one of those? That was my original impression. And then watching the show, it's like, yeah, this is enjoyable. There's not much more to say. It kind of is similar to a lot of other isekai today, where, like, specifically, that time I got reincarnated as a slime. That show and this show both have this sort of element in which you can watch it, and the first few episodes are very intense, I'll give them that, and it does drop off in intensity because the main character actually starts to find help. He starts to find friends, and that kind of raises the darkness of the show, or lowers the darkness of the show and raises the light-heartedness of the show, and it becomes more about friendship and loyalty than an edgy dark lord of loneliness trudging through this world and attempting to screw everyone over because they screwed me over. That's the basis of the show, but the point of it is that once he finds companions, once Naofumi finds companions, he gets more opportunities to retain his humanity and become a good man again. So there are some fun, good themes in it. But back to my point, you can watch this show without much stress. It's a stress-free show after a certain point. After like the first couple of episodes, you'd realize this is simply a show I can watch, and you don't have to be super invested, and there's not too much to be invested about. It just is, the waves are coming. How are we going to prepare for it? Wave came, we fought and won. That's great. And there are some more things that happen, negative, that threaten to destroy the relationships, but they get through them and carry on. And that gets recycled over and over, even through the first 9 episodes. That happens like 2 or 3 times, and it gets resolved. There's something very interesting in the curse shield mechanic, and I call it a mechanic because it's a game mechanic in the show. The way that magic works is just like you open menus and in your mind with your eyes, and if you've seen any other isekai show, like Sword Art Online, like Log Horizon, it has the same kind of HUD there on the screen for the main character to look at and to use. There are skill trees, and in the skill trees, he can unlock new shields. And each new shield does something different, has a different form of magic that he can use. And, of course, Raftalia is his slave, who has a sword. He cannot use a sword. It is impossible for him to even touch and pick up a sword. So his slave Raftalia is a swordsman. He teaches her all throughout her life to wield the sword and to kill all the enemies that he basically staggers with his shield. Very gamey. And that's another thing. Slavery comes up in the discussion as well. But nevertheless, what I was getting at is the curse shield is the most interesting thing so far. It reminds me of Berserk in that in certain episodes of Berserk, spoilers, Guts finds a suit of armor that has been used by someone similar to himself sometime in the past that feeds off of the rage and negative emotions of whoever is wearing it. And if he is able to go berserk, then the armor will increase his physical attributes, stabbing him, drawing his blood in order to give him superpowers, give him rush of inhuman adrenaline, opening up all of the inhibitors to the human body so that you can do these superhuman feats, like jumping 30 feet in the air and, lifting 20-ton boulders. And it's quite over the top, but it makes sense in the context of Berserk. In this show, there happens to be seemingly a kind of an analogy, an analogous item or spell called the Curse Shield, which opens up on a certain episode in which the main character kind of gives in to his negative emotions, and it allows him to use his shield in kind of an offensive capacity, and it almost destroys him and all of his friends at the same time as he is attacking this monster. And that was really cool. I really enjoy that kind of an item or an object that can increase your power, but is morally dubious to use. That's always a very interesting type of thing, whether it be a MacGuffin or an ability. It's always a fun thing. And that, I think, has given the show a little bit of leeway. Because if things were continuing as they have been, it's basically a weekly show that you watch and you don't get anything out of it, but it's fun and it looks pretty, kind of. The animation isn't that good, but the locations and the areas and the maps look all very nice. The horizons, the sky, is kind of a beautiful show in terms of color, but in terms of actual animation, it does kind of suck. Given you can watch something like Slime, and it's absolutely beautiful most of the time. So it gives the show a little bit more life. There's something there that you may find out about the Curse Shield if you continue watching. And I'm interested to see what else the show has to offer in that case. How will he use the Curse Shield? Will he ever use it even more? Will he be able to control it once it happens again? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Maybe he'll have to fight the other heroes at some point in an actual battle. Maybe he can become friends with the other heroes because they're all antagonistic against him. And he's constantly making new friends now. It's not the world is against me anymore. So that draw of the show has kind of dropped off drastically. He still has psychological problems due to the fact that so many people were against him in the beginning, and he has a lot of rage against those people who screwed him over, which comes back around in the form of the Curse Shield arc. But yeah, that is the Rising of the Shield Hero. There's not much more to it, other than the slave thing, which I had to come back to because it's a big topic of discussion, especially because not only does he have a slave, it is a female slave, and everyone expects him to be doing terrible things to her, and like her previous master did. Apparently she was beaten and abused and sickly when Naofumi got a hold of her. And he felt like he needed to get a slave because no one would be his partner. No one would be his companion. And he couldn't even fight at all, really, without someone else aiding him wielding a sword, an offensive weapon. So he gets a slave, but the goodness inside of him kind of comes to the forefront. He could have gotten an offensive monster to be his slave, but he got a beast woman who was sick and ill, probably because he wanted to heal her illness. But he makes it out like it's just that he wanted someone who would be easy to control. And he gets a little female girl with raccoon ears. She's a raccoon woman, and her design is amazing. Her design is gorgeous. And I'm not saying that like lewdly, but it's a great design. It's very, very attractive. And that really has a lot to do, I think, with why Shield Hero has done so well. Even on that thumbnail, it's like, oh, pretty girl and, normal protagonist man in green with a shield. You watch the show more for Raftalia than you do for Naofumi. But what can I say? It's a good design. It's great. But she's his slave, and everyone in the kingdom is okay with slavery towards beast people. So there's definitely kind of a I don't want to call it racism, but I guess speciesism, or you're speciesist against beast men. You can enslave beast men because they're part animal, but you can't enslave normal people. And interestingly enough, the other heroes are actually really down on Shield Hero for having a slave, because they're saying, "How dare you take a slave in this world? Because you come from a world in which you know slavery to be wrong." And the culture in that world has abolished slavery, basically, and is always trying to abolish slavery even more, and yet you get a slave here, which means you must be also speciesist and racist and a horrible person for getting a slave. And for him, it's like, if I didn't do this, I would be killed. I would not be able to survive in this world. I would not be able to help this world with the goal of saving it from the waves. So he feels justified, at least mostly, especially because he has been doing good for the slave. And it kind of reminds me of the biblical outlook on slavery, which is it doesn't usually encourage people to try and get out of slavery. It doesn't even say you should abolish slavery. There is always the caveat that God is going to one day abolish all slavery, that Jesus is going to come and get the captives out, free the slaves and break the chains and, all that kind of thing. So we know that slavery is negative. But there's this expectation in the Bible that men will always be evil in one way or another. And in a context where slavery is allowed, as a Christian, if you have a slave, then you should do all you can to help your slave. And if you are a Christian who is in slavery, you should do all you can to help your master. And there's always, gray areas. If you escape, then there's nothing wrong with that. But if you endure suffering, endure torture, and love your enemies, then you will be rewarded in heaven. And so that's the kind of push and pull of the Bible, is that, and it kind of works with Naofumi's mindset, because he wants to help this girl as well as be helped by her. And there's always this kind of capitalistic sense that you get from Naofumi. He is constantly going, because he was screwed over so badly, he is constantly going for help that will, he's looking to be helped constantly. It's always, I will help you, but you have to give me something in return. If he sees that someone needs something, he will ask for a reward later. He's not just going to help people without thinking, what can they do for me? Okay, because that's exactly what he did for mine, and she screwed him over royally. Literally royally, because she's a princess. Spoilers. So yeah, a lot of people hate that slavery exists in this world and that the main character actually gives in to slavery. But slavery itself is not shown to be a good thing in the show. So what's the problem? When Naofumi gets the slave, it's like this dark atmosphere is built up, and he's looking at Raftalia, and she's looking back at him, and she's afraid and frightened, and it's this like very dark, evil feeling that you get that, okay, this is wrong, but we kind of can understand why he's doing it. And the main character is not on a morally solid ground. Okay, he's not trying to be on a morally solid ground. He's just looking out for number one, and that makes him stronger, but it's also a moral concern later on, because everyone needs a hero in this show, and his friends want him to be someone accepting of love. And that's something I dislike about Naofumi and the writing of Naofumi in general, is the fact that he does not receive affection from anyone. Raftalia is now a beautiful woman, and she loves him, obviously, and yet he doesn't seem to understand that he cannot I guess because of his psychological hindrances, he cannot accept affection. But it's more than that. It kind of goes in the direction of the classic anime trope of the protagonist who is clueless. And I hate that. And I think I've said this before in one of my discussion videos. A clueless protagonist to romance is, like, not only completely unrealistic, but is extremely annoying, because in real life, if someone is coming on to you, I doubt anyone could possibly be so dumb as to not understand what they're getting at. Everyone wants love. Everyone wants affection. So if someone is coming on to them, they'll feel good about it. Raftalia comes on to Naofumi multiple times because she loves him so much. He's done so much for her, and she wants to be in a relationship with him. It's quite obvious, like even from an early point. And he just basically views her as a little child, views her as someone who is part of his party, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even seem like he understands that she loves him. There have been a couple of points where emotion does shine through, where she says, no matter where you go, what you do, because you have done so much for me, I will be with you forever. I want to be by your side forever. And he breaks down, and that's good, and there is some development with his character. But then it's right back to, oh, master, I want to give you a gift. Oh, thanks. Bye. I was like, what? What happened with that development of the emotions that happened? It doesn't even come back again, and Raftalia is left in the lurch. So, and there's that kind of frustrating thing with the other character, Philo, who is actually another monster character, who also seems to be in love with him, and they are rivals now for the love of Naofumi. And that's annoying, but it's also very cartoony and silly, and it makes for some comedy. There's a lot of comedic elements to this show as well, but it's so cliched, and I'm tired of that too. So yeah. So in terms of the slavery aspect, the show actually shows that slavery is bad and that Naofumi is doing something bad, but then his goodness comes back around and justifies the whole thing. Eventually Raftalia is freed, and she chooses to become his slave again. Again, just like in the Bible, slaves who want to be with their masters can, get an awl and pierce their ear, and to show that they will be loyal to him for life. And that's exactly what Raftalia does. She willingly gets the slave crest emblazoned on her once more, so that she will always be able to be his slave. And if he orders her to do something, she has to do it, showing absolute, complete faith in him, almost like a wedding ring. She's not ever going to go back on her vows. And once more, this goes completely over the head of Naofumi. He doesn't understand what she's getting at. It's just like, he actually says, are you sure you want to do this? You don't have to, And she's like, yes, I want to, show you my faith in you. And he's like, oh, okay, I guess that's good, I guess. And it's like, come on, man. So yeah, I guess the one thing I would have to say to the naysayers of Shield Hero is, number one, rape happens in media, and it has from day one of human history. Stories always contain very difficult situations, and they have to if you're going to have a satisfying completion and a satisfaction of the narrative. There has to be a low point, and rape is like one of the lowest points. And it's been done in all sorts of media, and that has been critically appraised as a good thing. Like, if you're able to use rape in a show or a movie in a kind of classy way, which sounds really stupid and oxymoronic. But if you're able to utilize that theme in a way that justifies it, then, and it has been used that way, so What's the problem? And then for slavery, the show itself says that slavery is bad. And in terms of another world, another culture in which slavery is not viewed as bad, it it's another world. This is fictitious, okay? And for Naofumi, it's like you can basically just acknowledge slavery is bad now. Naofumi is doing something bad, and I don't have to agree with him, okay? There's this kind of sense of gatekeeping I see with both Goblin Slayer and Rising of the Shield Hero, that these types of shows cannot be made, but they're made in the West all the time. But if they're made by the Japanese in anime, they're not okay. And it's a very obvious double standard. It's very hypocritical. And if you're saying that rape shouldn't be in any show, or adult themes, or slavery shouldn't be in any movie, that is one stance that you can hold, but you're not going to get anywhere, because freedom of speech, because of freedom of speech, period. As long as rape doesn't appear in children's art or media, there's no reason to ban the whole idea, the whole theme, as long as it is shown to be negative, you know. And even if it isn't, there is also that freedom of speech that you can just say, this is a fictitious thing, this is a story that is happening, and I can give mental assent to the fact that they're doing this, and it is here. I don't have to like it, I don't have to watch it, and it's not for me, and it's not for my children. And to try and absolutely destroy all semblance of negativity out of the world is idiotic, will never happen, and it's worthless to try and do that. It's censorship in a way. It's good, actually, to try and make morally justifiable characters and to have a sense of morality in a show. But for there to be no immorality in a show about morality, it takes away all of the punch. It takes away the entire point. You need something. There needs to be some darkness, some shadow, in order to show how bright the light is, if that makes any sense. So those are my thoughts on Rising of the Shield Hero. It was very rambling, and I don't think I got my points across that well. But thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and if you have another topic for discussion, leave that too. All right, until next time, farewell.